So you've got a speech coming up, you've got a presentation, but you don't know how to captivate your audience. I'm going to show you how to do that in 6 simple ways that you can learn almost immediately. My name is Dave Durand, and I help people master the art of influence. If you like what you see here, make sure you subscribe and you also hit notifications. Let's dive into the material right away. The first thing is you have to know that when you walk in to speak to an audience, you're speaking to 3 potential groups and you need to address each one of them. See, when a person likes a speaker, they say to themselves, I can relate to that person, or they understood me. So you may have a group that basically is more into what you're saying than you are. That's an easy group to talk to, but they might doubt your level of commitment or your understanding or intellect. And so because of that, you want to know they're in the room. There's another group that's in the room. This is a group that's completely skeptical of you. They don't believe what you're saying, they're not into what you're saying, and they may never be into what you're saying. And then there's a middle group, generally the largest one. That's the group that says, convince me. I'm mildly open, I need to be convinced. So how would you handle something like that? Let's say your job is to convince a bunch of salespeople to make phone calls. It might be, by the way, as simple as being a teacher and you're trying to convince people to do their homework. But we're going to go back to the sales example. You would say this. You'd say, now, some of you are going to go out there and immediately leave training and make tons of calls and you're super good at it. You're just into it. In fact, you might even say to yourself, Dave, I probably know this better than you do. And that could be true. Others are saying, I don't want to do this. I hate the phone. I had a job once I had to do this and I just don't want to do it. I'm nervous about it. I'm afraid. And then others are in the middle saying, you know what? If you're saying, what do you want to do on a Saturday night? I'm not going to say make a bunch of sales phone calls, but if I have to do it for work, I'll do it. And that makes the most sense. But I want to address all 3 of you. This group right here, you're going to rock it, crush it. Good for you. I'm super excited that you're there. You're kind of the envy of everybody else. What's really interesting, though, is that this group here that doesn't want to make phone calls, is nervous about phone calls, you may not even realize that you're actually you profile as our top performers. That's not to say we don't have top performers over here who like the phone, but most of our top performers hate the phone. It's what they don't feel like doing. They don't like it. Like most athletes don't like doing the workouts or having to eat right, but they do it anyway because it's necessary. And so just so you know, if you're wondering, is this job for me? And I'm wondering if it is for me because I don't like making phone calls. I want you to know that it's probably exactly for you. And that's how you do it. And by the way, you would say that only if it's true. It happens to be true in that setting. Most salespeople don't like making phone calls. So if you're to profile top performers, they don't like it. Okay, the next thing is tell a story to make your point or tell a joke to make your point, but never say it's funny. Even if it's a joke, don't say it's funny. So you would say this. Let's say you're wanting to communicate a story and or a point. You'd say, and that reminds me of actually a very important anecdote. There are 3 different types of people in the world. Those that know math and those that don't. Okay, and then you pause. What have you done there? You've made a joke. But if you say, that reminds me of something really funny. There are 3 different types of people in the world. Those that know math and those that don't. Okay, well, if it's not funny to them or your delivery is off, it's not funny. But if you say, well, that reminds me of the anecdote that there are 3 different types of people in the world. Those that know math and those that don't. Now, if they laugh, awesome. But if they don't laugh, now they say, you think it's funny, I don't think it's funny, I can't relate to you. Relatability is super important. The story is also very important. Why is the story important? The story is important because it draws them in. Now, that example, that quick anecdote, that reminds me of the anecdote. There are 3 different types of people in the world, those that know math and those that don't. And the reason I say that is because very often when it comes to us, we limit things to 2 choices, but there are more. That may not be exactly how you use that analogy, but it works there, right? You could actually take that particular anecdote, okay, and use it to make many different points. And so the reason I said that to you is because I was one of those people that didn't know math. And here's how it played out, okay? So anecdote, same anecdote, many different reasons, never call it funny. The next thing is have a beginning, a middle, and an end in your presentation. I alluded to this in the second point. Why? Well, if you're going to make a point, I said tell a story. Make sure that you have a point and that people understand what your point is. See, relatability matters, but also, do you know I'm important? So as soon as the speaker goes over their allotted time, most people check out mentally. The speaker thinks they're so amazing and dynamic, and they might be, but most people are thinking, I've got things I need to do, and now you've lost me. If they know there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end, they're going to stick with the end. And how do they know there's a beginning, middle, end? You say, I have 5 points to cover. I have 3 issues that. There are 2 ways to. And now they know, well, if there's 2 and you've covered that one, you must be halfway done. The problem is if you say there are 5 keys to, and you have time for a 30-minute presentation, and you spend 25 minutes on the first key, now they're like, oh my goodness, this person's going to be way over. I'm not going to pay any attention anymore. So instead, you'd have to say there are 5 points. Interestingly enough, the first one is the most important, and it's going to take me about 25 minutes to talk about. And the last 4, I'm going to be able to cover in 5 simple minutes. Okay, so you have a beginning, a middle, and end. The next thing you want to do is vary your pace, vary your tone, and vary your volume. This draws people in. One of the things we don't like about bad theater is a two-dimensional character. Why? Because they weren't rich. They didn't bring you in. Think about the greatest music that there is. There's contrast in it. The greatest roller coaster rides have contrast in them. The greatest actors, you can see them laugh. You can see them cry. When you're in a speech with somebody that's good at what they do, they pull you up, they take you down. They pause, they talk really fast to make a point, and then they capture your attention by saying something quiet and slowly. So you want to diversify your language. There's nothing worse than a person coming in and they just like, you fired up, and the crowd's not fired. And they're like, you fired up. You're like, no, I'm not. And I think you're actually kind of like overbearing. So instead you start a little bit slower, and then you build your pace until all of a sudden you can tell they're fired up and you've got them now, and you make them laugh. And then all of a sudden you want to calm that down a little bit. You calm it down. Why? So when you make them laugh again, boom, it really hits. So that's how you do that. You can practice it because you're being thoughtful about it. The next thing is to be vulnerable in the presentation, because people do like people who have vulnerability. I actually don't mind telling you about my vulnerability in speaking because it actually works here, but also because it's true. I know it's going to help you in what you're about to do, but I also know it's true about me. I remember when I first started public speaking, I was very afraid of it. Now, for me, that happens to go back into high school. I got over it pretty quickly. But I was nervous about it. I would say I was nervous about it at a scale of 1 to 10, like a 10. I especially didn't like reading in front of classes at all. I was very much like most people in that regard. Then I had my first job, and just being a little bit more comfortable with people throughout college and throughout high school, I got a little bit more comfortable, team captain, that sort of thing, but not really in a professional setting. And I remember the first time that I was going to give a speech in a professional setting, I was like, who's the most confident person in this company that I've seen give a speech? And what I did was I basically avatared the way they stood. I didn't want to mimic this person, and then they go, oh, well, you think you're this person, you're acting like this person, and it would be outside of my personality. But I just stood the way they stood. And it was just a very simple, they leaned on one leg more than the other. And when I did that, I felt confident like them. And then everything else about my presentation was my own self. Eventually, I was able to drop even standing like that. But it gave me a little confidence. Now, I'm not even giving you that as a technique. I'm just telling you that I had vulnerability. I was nervous as a speaker, and I developed these things. And once I developed them, it became much easier to be effective in a presentation. What is a vulnerability in a presentation? To say something like, I wish I had have known this when I was... The point that I'm about to make, if I'd have known it, everything would have been different. That's vulnerable. It is to say that I had an error. Or, now listen, if you grasp what I'm about to say immediately, you're ahead of where I was. I didn't get this material, and I had to hear it over and over and over again. So if you're saying to yourself, this sounds complicated, how am I going to get this? I was right there with you, okay? That's good. That's vulnerability. It allows you to do well. So in summary, it's pretty simple. Speak to 3 potential audiences so you draw them all in. Make sure that you tell stories to make a point, but never say they're funny, even if they are a joke. The next thing is to make sure you've got a beginning, a middle, and an end. Bullet point it, whatever it might be. There are 6 ways, 7 keys to. Make sure that you vary your pace, vary your tone, vary your volume. So you're making sure that you're like 3-dimensional and attractive in what you're doing, and be vulnerable in what you do. Here's a bonus one, and this is a super important one. Don't thank people at the end of your presentation. I know it sounds crazy because you want to be grateful. The reason you don't thank them at your end of your presentation is it looks like you're needing affirmation. Instead, you let them know it's a pleasure to be with you. It's a pleasure to be with me. I'm looking forward to the next time we're together. And in fact, that's true with me on Durand On Demand. It's been a pleasure being with you. I'm looking forward to it next time. Make sure you subscribe, hit your notifications, share those with others, and tell me what you think of today's presentation.